is bad, the economy will expose you. Go and tell him that.
You mean they have been exposed?
Go and tell Baba. He said if the fundamentals of the economy is bad, the dollar will expose you. Tell him that if the fundamentals of transport is bad, it will expose you.
If you have a leg, the thigh is supposed to be bigger than the calf. If the calf becomes bigger than the thigh, then it means there is sickness in the leg. Because if you are spending most of your money on secondary education and less on tertiary and basic, then there's something wrong with your educational system. And so the government has budgeted 2 billion cedis for free SHS for this academic year. If you have 2 billion more to spend on education, will you spend all of it on free SHS so that even when people can afford to pay, they don't have to pay? Because today there's no system where if my child goes to a public secondary school and I can afford to pay, there's no system for me to pay.
The issue of free education, I don't think it's something that any of us can compromise on, you know, and true, it may be that there have to be changes in the way in which we are administering it. You know, I can't take my child to Achimota or Dogono and then leave him or her and drive away and kind of not pay anything, whilst I can pay for 10 people. We need to,
so why did you implement it then?
We need to question, well, you need to begin to get the data to then be discriminatory in how and who pays and who doesn't pay.
Free senior high school policy is a policy for the development of our country. We're not going back on it. We're not going to have it reviewed. We're going to continue with it. We're going to improve on it. We're going to develop the infrastructure so that we can develop the human capacity of our country. That is the position of the new patriotic party and of its President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. No review today, no review tomorrow, no cancel.
Don't you go to the IMF? Go to the IMF. We will not go to the IMF today. We will not go to IMF tomorrow, and we are not going as long as the NPP remains in power.
And go to IMF. We are not going to go to IMF. But I can tell you, we are not going to the IMF. Whatever we do, we are not. We are a proud nation. We have the resources. We have the capacity. Don't let anybody tell you. Like when Joshua, Caleb, and the 10 others went to spy on the promised land. And only 2 of them came to say that we can do it. And the 10 went around the community murmuring, you can't, da 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 da. We are not people of short sight, you know.
IMF. What are we going to say again? Because the noise we make, going into IMF is just like handing over power to NDC without a contest. And I threw my own words back when I said NDC went to IMF because of mismanagement of the economy. So if MPP is going to IMF, what am I going to say? Any government that goes to IMF has failed. You cannot use the face of those who took us to IMF to break the edge. They don't work.
So made several statements which have either turned out to be untrue or are contradictory. Either way, they have served to undermine the credibility of government and of its economic management team. These include the denial that government will ask for a bailout from the IMF, so one is no longer sure what to believe.
I think it's important to look at it. First of all, how many countries are currently receiving IMF bailout? And why are they doing so? And these are countries that have failed in managing their finances. I think that's how you have to look at it. We went, because the bottom line, we are going to the IMF because we have been reckless. We have been to the point of even what one could allege criminality in some regard. This government it's been overborrowing from the central bank. And beyond that, we are having issues. As we speak, this year so far, the cedi is the worst performing currency in Africa. This year so far. So really, the idea is to see how that can help pop it up. We need the IMF because we have lacked discipline in solving our own issues. But the money from the IMF, I'm not too sure how far that will go in resolving the issues. Because don't forget, 2 years ago, we went to the Eurobond to borrow 1 billion. We still had issues. That by the middle of last year, our currency was competing with the hryvnias. And you know, what is the good news? At what cost? One, they say they will remove all subsidies. Whether the subsidies are targeted at the poor or not, those subsidies are going. IMF are not necessarily interested in economic growth. IMF, their policies have never been to, as it were, help you create jobs. It is to make sure that, look, you can pay your debts. Okay? And paying debts doesn't necessarily directly benefit the Ghanaian. Because look, in Argentina, they've stopped them from even, they have to cut down the salaries to what? Doctors and teachers. In June, if you're not careful, what's happening with the doctors? So all these things are tied. Beyond that, what are the other things that they are looking for us to do? They're also saying that there should be, government should do what they call right-sizing. You know, now they use terms. It's really downsizing or just laying people off. But now they say right-sizing because they feel that the size is not right. So lay people off. But clearly, it is not going to happen. Workers are going to suffer, and they're not going to suffer because the IMF says so. Okay. They are going to suffer because we have been reckless in how we spend the money that we've been getting. Right. Because, look, bottom line, brother, over the last 6 years alone, revenues from gold, they've been double what it was. You know, so
they always talk about the mess John Mahama left us, the economic mess he left us. I mean, let's just go down a comparison lane. When I left office, the debt to GDP was 57%. Today, the debt to GDP is more than 100%. It means if you take all Ghana's GDP and you turn it into money, you use it to pay all our debts and you still owe 3%. Our debt to GDP was 57%. And the optimum GDP for middle income countries that is recommended by the IMF is 60%. So we're even under the recommended debt to GDP. When we left office, the budget deficit was 6.6%. Today, the budget deficit, it even went to 15%. It has now started dropping. When we left office, inflation was 15.5%. Inflation under this government went to 54% and is only now dropping. It's about 30%. When we left office, cocoa production was 960,000 metric tons. And we went for syndication loan of $1.8 billion, brought $1.8 billion into this country. Today, cocoa production is under 500,000 tons. And when they went for syndication, they got only $800 million. At 8%, we got $1.8 billion at 2%. And so what are you talking about? You can't compare the economy under us. When we left office, we gave you 2 new oil fields. All the work that we did as NDC was with one oil field, the Jubilee field. We worked and brought the 10th field and the Sankofa field into production. And so it made oil revenues triple. When we left office, we had solved Dumso. We bought enough generation. We established ESLA to pay the legacy debt. Today, Dumso is back. You can't pay the independent producers. And all of you know Dumso is back, just that they don't want to announce a timetable. Yesterday when I came to Tamale, the lights were off the whole day. And so, this thing they keep saying, Mahama left a mess, we came and repaired your mess. Before I left office, the IMF said that Ghana's economy was going to grow by 8%. And it grew by 8% and more in 2017. And in 2018, it dropped. When their own policies started kicking in, you look at the GDP growth rate. From the high of 8% that they inherited from me, the next year it went to 6 point something, 5 point something, until when COVID hit, it went to 0. So that myth about you left us a mess, you left us a mess. When you came into office, the Huntor Eurobond was left with 270 million to pay. Where did you get that money to pay? Mahama left it in the sinking fund because I knew that debt was coming up. That was visionary because I knew that if a new government came, it was going to be difficult to find 270 million at once to pay off the Huntor Eurobond. So we left it in the sinking fund. They came and met it. In October, they just took it and paid the Eurobond. And after that, they didn't put any money in the sinking fund again. That's why when COVID hit, we had no money to defend ourselves. I set up the stabilization fund. When COVID hit, they didn't know where to find money. We told them, go and look in the stabilization fund. I left money in there. Went and took 300 million, from the stabilization fund. I set up the Ghana Investment Infrastructure Fund. The Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund. And I put $270 million seed money in that fund. Today, that's what you are using to build your Agenda 111 hospitals. So how can I have left you a mess? They are good at propaganda. And so they just keep repeating something. Oh, we came and met your mess. We came and met your mess. In 2016, for the first time in Ghana's history, we ran the government budget without taking 1 cedi from the Bank of Ghana. 0 borrowing from Central Bank. You in 2021, 42 billion, you made Central Bank print for you. The following year, 2022, 35 billion, you made Central Bank print for you. And that is why today, Central Bank is broke. Because it made a loss of more than 60 billion cedis. When I was president, Central Bank made a profit of more than 1 billion cedis. And so that propaganda must stop once and for all. You didn't inherit a mess. You inherited an economy that was doing well. It is you, by your mismanagement, your clueless finance minister, and your clueless head of economic management team, who now wants to run away from economic issues to become the...
You can buy electricity 24 hours. But because of digitalization, you can transfer money for 24 hours. You can receive money for 24 hours. There are many chop bars that are open for 24 hours. You can buy electricity 24 hours. But because of digitalization, you can transfer money for 24 hours. You can receive money for 24 hours. There are many chop bars that are open for 24 hours.
24-hour economy. Now 8-hour economy went to me and so light. 8-hour economy. 8-hour economy. Now you team one with the die crown. Went to me and so light. 24 hours I bet me here. Light run I bet me here. 8 hours I went to me here. Nana, honorable Atuforcing. 8 hours went to me and so light. Nana, honorable Atuforcing.
And the vice president is saying that he understands the region. He says this 24-hour economies. Hey, my brothers, when we work in our farms and we are tired in the night, we have to sleep with our wives. So we have to be with our wives. So in the night, one does also to go and be farming, and then people will come and take our wives away. Hey, we have to be careful about this 24-hour thing.
John Mahama, Obeka said, only the Oba or the 24-hour economy, and yes, sir. So, Kasa on Carboni, Obi Obeka said, 24-hour economy, no, and ya the papa no, next or no anti politics, I say. Obi Obeka said, 24-hour economy, no, and ya the papa no, next or no anti politics, I say. Jesse Bisa. Yewra John Mahama ni say dey na ubeya ebema economy no etimi around 24 hours. And only question is here this.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 24-hour economy may have finally resonated with Ghanaians. It may be classified as an idea whose time has come due to Ghana's self-inflicted economic crisis today, because the 24-hour economy initiative has been well thought through and was captured on page 105 of the NDC's 2020 People's Manifesto. Indeed, its roots emanate from the 40-year National Development Plan that was developed by the National Development Planning Commission, which was put together when I was president of this country. Unfortunately, the present government discarded the 40-year development plan and replaced it with a Ghana Beyond Aid plan that has rather turned Ghana into a beggar nation.
When I look at the economic management team, it is quite clearly a fantastic team. Professor Jambafo, Dr. Akutose, Dr. Afriye Akoto, Honorable Alan Chiramanting, Boachi Ejaku, Ken Oforiata, Senior Minister Yao Osafo Mafu. What a solid team. In fact, can anyone remember the NDC economic management team? I am sure. I'm sure.
Abusia nyumre memo ajo memo akwaba mjiri se wapo ye ene February bosome no anache se onu so eguso ye gya ne kwan enche na wotwe se ne na se February no sokọ na March dum na yesie unim se ye ka still electoral commission year timetable for 2024 election and by the booster question we have for almost a month in electoral commission for one year MI the etiti say electoral commission say nyame adom abosome kwa na wie ya and dey ebeba but one another thing the constitutional instrument CI de bekwa koto abano last year nyame ya adom a bosome ayebe wramu ne afepepepe 31st March and electoral commission did the CI call ye say parliament for approval parliament rejected unanimously both MPP NDC majority minority now rejected ABC electoral commission for CI bianco so we don't know say 2024 election ye nim CI de ko say that no an de ko anasa for no de beba no eno so enkomo twetwe e ntene ye be di sansam no ehon koma me kan so share live original TV social media handles ni nyina so obetimi ahwe ho so amatumi ayeye ya say kan so be send no messages na ba ne kan so emfa ema me need some on to betima from the captain of the bishop from my game mafia so amaje so but ena wo hwe aha adwumako ba ko a ensha banse omo so hwe se kabima minka bia mamu be koso titiro ne aba na bato ensem a ye from care for free and fair elections Ghana eternity from care Ghana omo I issue a year statement that is omo I requested for a detailed program timelines for election 2024 activities and to match the busa electoral commission several questions omo busa electoral commission say da ben and limited biometric voter registration exercise na ebe cost training of grassroots registration officers officials ebe cost so appointment and briefing of district registration review committee, national post registration review committee, procurement of material, equipment and technologies for the election, exhibition of the voter register, printing of provisional, recruitment of exhibition officials. Nina, we are there ebisa from electoral commission. It means we are getting there. Anyame adom ene yenseti mi aka opini kwankyerefo woda eye esoya ye friend ke Ghana omoso boa emaka bima minka bitimi nyini ewo memo ye nua eye David Kumi Ado ewo ifidie mu ha openi akwaba pachana pom ye de oba fia how many years ni hey why you betwa mo because me can say the last time I meet here was I think said some few weeks to NDC national executive elections in Asia here and what change and share bi wo Ghana ha there I say electoral commission ni pacho mo request ya mo de koye manya any response from the electoral commission as to say there more air request no mo sabi to me aka anamo be na mate o ma acknowledge receipt